Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Town of Portland weekly podcast. We are taping live in our Town Tech Educational Podcast studio at Portland High School. And with us this week, we have our guests in the studio, obviously, our First Selectwoman, Ms. Susan Bransfield. Also calling in on the phone, we have our Director of Public Health for the Chatham Health District, and also our Superintendent of the School, Dr. Philip O'Reilly, as well as our Public Works Director, Robert Shea. So welcome all. Thank you. I'm your host. This is episode 6 of our weekly podcast for the town of Portland, and I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and I'm going to turn it right over to Susan. And hi, Susan, how are you?
Hi, Dave. I'm doing well. Thanks for hosting again on our 6th episode. And I just wanted to start off, Dave, a brief update on some things within our town. The highlight of what we've done this week is really keeping services going very smoothly in our town. And I want to thank all of our town employees for doing such a wonderful job, from general government, Board of Education, police, fire. Everyone's doing a tremendous job, and I thank everyone very sincerely for keeping their patience and doing well through this really difficult time. One thing that Michelle Sapaglia, who's my assistant in the First Selectman's office, has done for the second time is a newsletter. As we all know, your listeners know, the River East News Bulletin has suspended their publication during the COVID-19 crisis. And as a result, we've tried to get some information out to our residents through a monthly newsletter. And it will be available at the Portland Transfer Station. We're issuing it on May 1, so it will be available. And we also have a special box in front of Town Hall at 33 East Main Street. People may pick up a copy. And then, of course, we will be happy to email it to anyone who requests. We also have it up on our website, thanks to Kevin Armstrong, our tech specialist. He's able to, I don't know, he does a lot of magic for us, Dave, and he's really doing a great job keeping us on task as far as technology goes. The newsletter has some interesting information on our library and an update on the library building project. And also Parks and Recreation has some interesting programs that they're offering for all ages. And I think it's important to keep communications up with our public, so I urge everybody to get a copy. I'm looking forward to hearing from Russ Melmed, as well as from Dr. O'Reilly and Bob Shea. Should be another good show here. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. And I know, Russ, you're on a tight timeline, so let's flip it right over to you as Mr. Russell Melmed from the Chatham Health District is going to give us a little update on what's going on within our 7 towns, as well as for the town of Portland. It's all you, Russ.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Susan. Happy to be on again. A little bit of situational awareness, as I've been accustomed to doing on this broadcast. We've got in Chatham Health District, we've approached 165 cases of COVID-19, and unfortunately 19 of those individuals have died from their disease. In the town of Portland, we are over 50. I think we have 51 as of counting yesterday, and also a number of fatalities. And I just want to emphasize that the majority of our most severe outcomes, people who end up in the hospital and the people who do succumb to their illness and die, are among our older residents and people who have underlying health conditions. It doesn't mean that otherwise healthy individuals don't get sick and don't get very sick and don't also occasionally have some pretty bad outcomes. But what we're seeing right now, especially in our long-term care facilities, is an acceleration of the spread of the virus in those settings. And that's where our focus is right now, and the state is focusing a lot on getting personal protective equipment to those facilities to help them manage their patients and keep their healthy patients healthy. It's a very difficult scenario right now for many long-term care facilities in the state and the country. There's a lot of talk right now about reopening segments of towns and the economy, which is good to start talking about those things and preparing for how we're going to do those things and do those things safely. What I want to emphasize to residents who are listening is that reopening is not going to be going back to normal. I think we're not going to be seeing things back to normal for a very, very long time, until probably there's a vaccine or a very, very good treatment that reduces the illness, reduces its infectiousness, and saves a lot of lives. I think when we talk about reopening and getting everybody back to work, which is very important, people need to be prepared for what that's going to look like. And it's going to look very, very different. I think we're all going to be wearing masks for a very long time where we work and where we shop and whenever we're out. I think masks are going to be with us for a long time. I think social distancing, staying away from other people as much as possible, is going to be with us for a very long time as well. So when we talk about how we're going to start coming back to work, people just need to be ready that it's going to look very different from what it did a couple of months ago when we all left our places of employment and started staying home. And it's going to be incumbent on every individual to do everything they can to follow those rules and guidelines that are out there to keep others safe. Wearing a mask still looks silly a little bit, and it's still uncomfortable. But when I'm wearing a mask, when I'm at work, I am protecting you from me, just in case I am sick. So, wearing a mask in that sense is doing everyone around you a favor. It's showing respect for others around you. It does very little, especially the cloth masks, does very little to protect you from others. So, for those people who think wearing masks, they don't think it's a big deal. They don't think it's a big deal to get sick. Well, it is. But really, it's about helping your neighbor, protecting others you're around. So I think all those things are going to be with us for a very long time, and it's going to get tiresome, but it's important. If we don't want to go back to what we're experiencing now, which is broad shutdowns of the economy and businesses and schools and things like that, we all need to take the guidelines and the rules very seriously when they come out. I'll stop there because I know we've got another special guest on, and I'm really eager to hear Dr. O'Reilly speak. But we all need to look forward to what's coming, but also be prepared for it to not look very similar to what it did a couple of months ago.
Great, Russ. Thank you so much for all you do and your staff over in the Chatham Health District, and we'll keep you posted and look forward. We're probably going to do this again next week, so
Sure.
I'm sure you'll be getting an email. So
Yep.
without any further ado, would like to, we have on our line for the first time, actually, is our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Philip O'Reilly. And Dr. O'Reilly, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time, and I know you've been keeping busy with the governor's calls, the commissioner's calls. So give us a little of input on what's happening in the world of academia.
Thanks very much, Dave. Susan, hello. Bob,
Hello.
nice to see you or hear from you. Russ, thank you for all your help in guiding us through this process. So I thought today that I would talk about three things, Dave. I thought I'd talk a little bit about our distance learning plan. Number two, I thought we would talk about our recent survey results that we received from parents relative to our plan. And then the last thing I thought I'd talk about, although I certainly understand, Russ, that it's hard to determine what's going to be on the other side and that it's not going to be normal. I did want to talk about the fact that we are beginning to think about a reentry process when schools are reopened, because that's important to be prepared. So let me just start. For our listeners, we established a distance learning plan for March 16th. It began March 16th. It's hard to believe that we're in our 7th week of that period of time. It's really a blended learning plan. It consists what we call with, and to be honest, I didn't even know these words existed in education, but synchronous and asynchronous learning. And, synchronous is really real-time education. In other words, teachers doing lessons, online lessons to live groups of children, so it's synchronous. And then there's asynchronous, which really means that it's not real time. It may be pre-recorded through emails, through other online platforms where students would be doing work that is directed by the teacher, but not live direction. And we have great examples of both of them happening right now. I've seen so many wonderful lessons from our early childhood elementary groups where they are doing small group meetings with kids, tutorials with students, reading to students, having students read to them, which is really exciting given the fact that it's distance. But then there's the asynchronous learning. Don Brecklin, our outstanding math teacher at the high school, and his experience with flipped classrooms, where he actually does the pre-recording of a math lesson, shares it with his students, and then provides them with opportunities to practice what he has taught on these videos. So we really have a lovely blended learning platform. We have a small group of resources that we really rely on. Obviously, the Google platform is huge for us, Dave and Susan and listeners. We've all learned now how to use it, and fortunately, our middle school and high school staff have all been going through a process to be certified Google users, and that began last year. And my hat's off to Dr. Britton and his efforts, which have now come in quite handy to get us all really Google certified and level 1 certified and comfortable with using that platform. I wanted to talk just very quickly. We have a meal service from day one. From March 16th, the Portland Public Schools are offering breakfast and lunch for all students, all Portland students, and not just those that may qualify because of financial challenges, but all Portland students. We have about 275 meals. That's combined meals of breakfast and lunch every single day now. We serve both at the Portland High School, where people drive up and pick up their lunch breakfast package, and then we also serve our Chatham Court families, and we do a delivery service there daily. So we're very pleased with that process and program and want to continue that as long as we can, including into the summer months if possible. A lot of people have talked about, so what are our people doing? All Portland employees remain employed and remain very engaged in the learning process. Even though the administrators are working from home, they are going pretty strong with regular team meetings, planning meetings, calls and emails with our parents who may have challenges with students, organizing support for kids, meeting with mental health teams, facilitating those struggling learners. Teachers, shout out to teachers. Wow, have they done an amazing job. I hope that all Portland families are so proud of our staff. And I've heard so many positive comments about the work of our teachers, and they're 5 days per week using both models of instruction, that's synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Just couldn't do it without them. Our paraprofessionals, another group of people that we couldn't work without. Our paraprofessionals have been designated to particular kids or particular small groups of kids. They're checking in with struggling learners because obviously not everybody is comfortable with online learning. So we're trying to meet kids where they are and to help them and support them. And our paraprofessionals play a very keen role. Paraprofessionals also execute the repetitious lessons that are so necessary for speech and language, or for physical therapy, or for our behavioral support, our what we call our BCBA, behavioral interventions. They are key in making sure kids are practicing those things day in and day out remotely. Secretaries are working alongside our principals, and another shout-out group is to our custodians. They're in a deep cleaning of the buildings. I told them once we knew this was going to be long-term, I said we got to consider that we got to do a thorough cleaning, because even if kids come back at the end of May, I want them to come back to sparkling new buildings so they get a sense that there's a restart here. So our buildings are looking beautiful. But the other thing is that our custodians are getting some long-term projects, ones that we've been planning to do for a long time but just didn't have the personnel to do it. The painting of classrooms, painting of hallways, those projects are happening. And then our nurses, they're monitoring student health, which is really key, and really working with our parent community to make sure our kids stay healthy and stay healthy enough to work on their schoolwork. So I want to pause there. I'm going to go on because I want to talk about a couple other things, but I want to pause there. If you, Dave or Susan, have any questions of me before I move to the next section, or tell me if I've talked too much already.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. I know you participated in our Zoom Selectmen's meeting last week, and maybe Susan could lean on where the budget process is and interject that. So I know, Susan, we have a time frame for our upcoming Selectmen's meeting and deliberations, so we can tell us a little bit about that, and we can turn it back to Philip.
Sure. Just briefly, good job so far. Philip, I'm enjoying listening to all of the learning that's going on in our town. And I know that my granddaughters in particular are enjoying the distance learning and not skipping a beat. There's quite a bit of learning going on, and that is so important. As we are proceeding with the prediction of the budget for 2020-2021, it's a difficult process because, as I think you're going to talk a little bit about, Philip, and as was alluded by Russell earlier, we're not quite sure what our needs are going to be come this new fiscal year. But we're diligently working with all of our departments, and on May 6th, Wednesday, May 6th, through the Zoom meeting process, we will have a public hearing. I've been receiving written comments through email. I will have those. I'm sharing those with the Board of Selectmen, and we encourage everyone to participate on May 6th, and they can comment, chat with us, and have input on the budget process as they would like to see services and things for the new fiscal year. Following the May 6th public hearing, the Selectmen on May 19 and May 20 will deliberate. They will discuss the needs. They will discuss how they are viewing the future for our town, and hopefully reach a consensus that will be voted on May the 27th. And we'll take it from there to proceed toward our July 1 date. So that, in a nutshell, is the schedule, Dave.
That's great. And I know, Philip, we Zoomed your Special Board of Education meeting last week also, and your team's been working very hard on, kind of outlining your good, better, and best scenarios. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. We want to be prepared, as Susan said. Susan inspired me to think about these possible scenarios that could occur, and as she said, we're not sure what it's going to look like, and so we have to be prepared. And so I shared with the board some thoughts that I have as exiting district leader here about how we proceed forward. And certainly we're willing. The Board of Ed and I are always willing to work with the Board of Selectmen and with Susan and we'll use whatever potential savings that we may have towards offsetting next year's requests. And so that was level one. Level two, really were personnel cuts that would occur if it got more severe, if we had to go below what Susan's proposed budget is. And then if we had to go even lower, closer to zero or even below zero, if that's possible, the more dramatic cuts that we would have to make, and changes in programming as well. So we will continue to upgrade that. It's not a final word, but it is the beginning effort on my part to say, okay, here's what those three levels of intervention may be, depending upon how catastrophic it is. And we certainly understand, and I say we, the Board of Ed, understand the potential challenges with towns. So, we stand ready to work across the aisle with the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, thank you, Philip, the Selectman, and very much appreciated and learned quite a bit from the last meeting that we had, and I suspect we'll continue to develop the budget as we move ahead and remain flexible and open to the challenges that we're facing. I'm also very interested in learning a little bit about this parent survey that you're going to share with us. I think that's going to be interesting to hear.
So I'll, if I may, Dave, I'm gonna
Absolutely.
jump into that very quickly because right now I'm staring at 9 pages of summary data, and I don't think that your listeners want me to recite that. But let me. But it is interesting to me to get the feedback. We had almost 300 people respond to us, 300 parents respond to our survey, and given the fact that we have 1,320 students, that's a good number because you think many of those parents have multiple children. So we were pleased with the response. The other thing I was quite pleased with, and that is the specific shout-outs to the tens and tens of teachers, paraprofessionals who are working so hard, as I spoke to before. So parents are recognizing and seeing firsthand how hard our educators are working, and so that was clear. But I am always honest and transparent, and it is important for us to understand that this distance learning plan isn't perfect, and we received quite a bit of feedback from parents, but it all, I think it can be summarized, and that's what I want to do. One of the things that's really important is the fact that all of our parents at every single grade level in every single school are saying our students, our kids, miss the social interaction with peers, that it is really impacting them. Number 2, they're really missing the interaction with their teachers, and they're really missing school. And we forget. We think that kids hate school. They don't. It's all part of their routine, and their routine has been ripped up, if you will, and they miss it. And it's really important for us as a community, especially as we move forward when we reopen, that we recognize that this has or could have been potentially traumatic for kids. And that is coming through from our parents, as I said, at every grade level, pre-K through our high school days. Another thing that's loud and clear is this has been hard on parents. The notion of managing a job at home, a distance job, if you will, doing your distance work, while also working with your kids and supporting them in their new learning, I know has been a difficult time for them. And they're calling on us to have more contact time, teacher-kid, and not necessarily a whole classroom contact time, but more time between individual kids and their teachers. So we hear that. At our lower end, we're fortunate in Portland. The town has supported us with our digital learning plan, and again, I'm so happy that we have moved forward, and beyond that challenge that so many other districts, especially our more urban settings, the challenge of providing a piece of equipment for every single child. But we have done that, and we've done that successfully. When I can say that, 5 or 6 students don't have individual devices or may have trouble with their devices because they're not working correctly. Out of those, as I said, almost 300 surveys, I think we've really turned a corner. So that is really great. We also have worked hard for the very small handful of kids who didn't have a wireless capacity. Fewer than 5 families. Now, some of the families may struggle with that wireless capacity because they have, 2 or 3 learners online as well as mom and dad who are working online. So that's a piece that parents have had tried to learn how to manage it all. As I move up into the Brownstone and middle school, it really is. It's a little bit more difficult to get a common theme with the needs, but loudly and clearly, parents have said they felt like the workload at the middle school was really harsh, and so we're going to take a very close look at that. And then at the high school, we're going to work on the consistency of with our teachers. There's a large amount of work at the high school level. We all know that. Parents are calling for more video lessons, more virtual lessons, and more consistency teacher to teacher. So those are some of the broad summaries that I've pulled out. But also, as I was looking at it, there were at every school level there were parents who have outreach needs, and so we have identified those parents, and those parents will have a personal contact with an administrator so that we can support our Portland parents who are struggling for lots of different reasons, whether their kids aren't engaged in the learning, whether they're struggling with getting the lunches every day. We've identified, or what we think, based on what parents have told us in the survey, we've identified, a group of parents at every school that we want to reach out to and support to make sure that they are provided the opportunity and their children have the opportunity that every other child has in Portland. So that's the very quick, broad perspective of this survey. The survey itself will be shared with the Board of Ed on Tuesday night, and I know that my board will have lots of discussions about the results and the data that we present to them. So
great. Thank you, Dr. O'Reilly. Sure. I appreciate the Cliff Note version of that and so forth. And kudos to your whole administrative team, as far as getting the distance learning out. People don't realize that there are a lot of systems throughout the state. I mean, we've been doing this, I think, for 7 weeks.
7 weeks now, yeah.
And a lot of school systems have only been doing it for 3.5 weeks. So, I mean, your whole administrative team and the district has been hit the ground running. And again, kudos to you for all of that effort.
Thank you. I kudos really to the administrative team and to our teachers. The teachers, that Friday before we broke, what was it, March 13th?
Yes.
Teachers clearly, I met with every single staff in every single building to share with them what we were attempting to do. And every group of teachers said, Philip, this is the right thing to do. We're ready to go. Give us the ball. And I, literally passed them the ball, and they've done a great job. Now, and we're going to continue to perfect it because it has to be, because as Russ intimated, we're probably not out of the woods yet, and we probably will be dealing with some blended learning for next year. Some distance learning if the numbers of cases increase unexpectedly. And then also, obviously, we hope that our kids are back in the schools. But, we want to continue to perfect how we do this.
Sure.
Philip, were you going to talk a little bit about the reentry process? You mentioned at the start that you have some.
So yeah, I guess one of the things I didn't say was the concern from parents, some parents, particularly our younger parents, about kids and whether or not they're going to start at a lower level than they would have had school continued. So that really has to drive us, Susan, as we pivot to and plan for the beginning of the new school year, or the re-beginning of this particular school year if the governor allows us back. So we have to have a plan for inventorying our students, if you will, assessing our students and where they are, what they have learned, or what they haven't learned, and what we need to solidify before they move to their new grade level of material. That will be critical. The other thing that will be critical is, as I alluded to, the social and emotional trauma that this may have yielded on our students, and being prepared with our clinicians to address those needs when they come back to us. That will be clear. We also have to look at expanding our as I alluded to also before, expanding our opportunity to I don't want to say react, but to respond quickly. I think my team did a really great job of rolling this out in a relatively quick manner. We're going to have to be prepared if the governor or the president or somebody tells us that we have to shut down again. So that has to be part of the planning process now to be prepared for that. And so when we're open, we're going to look at the assessment data, and we're going to respond to that assessment data, what it tells us about kids and their learning, and then what it tells us about what our targeted intervention will be needed, whether it's the academic intervention or the social emotional intervention.
Sure, absolutely. And at this point, I don't think anybody's crystal ball is clear,
No.
as far as where we're going and how we're going to get there. But I think to everybody's benefit, not only you and Susan and the Board of Selectmen as well as the Board of Education have been interacting and working together phenomenally well, and going forward, I think that's going to have to be part of the mix, and both on the economic side and the educational side.
Definitely. And it's wonderful you have some data, Philip, to look at to help you determine what the path forward is, not only academically, but also emotionally and what parents are saying. I think it's excellent. I look forward to reading more about that parent survey as well as the assessment data on the learning that all of our students are doing. And on behalf of the Selectmen, I want to say how much we enjoy working with you and look forward to helping and making certain that our youngsters are receiving good education today and every day in the future.
Thanks, Susan.
Great. Thank you, Doctor. And I think, Bob, are you still on the line?
I'm here, Dave.
All right. And again, I want to thank Dr. O'Reilly for his first appearance on our annual weekly podcast, and we certainly do appreciate his involvement and input. That's great. So without any further ado, let's throw it over to you, Bob, and basically just give us a little bit of an update. I know not a whole lot has changed since last week, but give it a go.
Well, thanks. First of all, Dr. O'Reilly's done a great job, and I can't commend him and his staff. They're working closely with me as well. It's a small community, and on the public safety side, everybody has to work together in a team approach to try to make this right. And I think, looking at what we're doing here in town and those that are working in those essential areas as well, and some of those that can't, do it from the home base because there's so many things that need to be done on a daily basis, have really Dr. O'Reilly has said, the policies and procedures that the administrators as well as, staff have been working together to put out are really following the program. I mean, I can't thank the overall staff in town enough for just kind of going with something that we had to put together. I mean, on the public safety side, I've been in this a long time, but you don't see these things, and this is new to me too. So working with Susan and all the departments to try to develop what we thought in the very beginning was going to help protect our employees, protect the public when there's a need to work out there, has seemed to been good. With that said, we can't leave our guard down or let our guard down. And we need to continue to work and make improvements to those respiratory protection policies that we have, our checklists for how we're working in the field and keeping employers or I should say our employees safe. So we're going to continue to do that. Each and every day we review our policies. We look at information that's given to us from DPH, that comes from our OEMS related to the way we're responding. The most critical and dangerous and hazardous thing that we're doing is responding to help those that are in need, that unfortunately are affected, and trying to give them the best medical attention until we can get them to a facility as we can. That's been cumbersome and for volunteers a little difficult and scary for their families as well. But they're stepping up, and we're trying to provide them the PPE requirement. My officers and I, as well as the finance director, are working, every day, frankly, every day, probably 2-3 hours a day, looking for additional PPE, trying to find the companies that are receiving some of these products. And I could say that we've probably reached out to over 100 different companies, believe it or not. And unfortunately, a lot of those can't supply. They're having difficult times getting the material. But we are in good shape with the help of the state. PPE is being distributed in small amounts to our region. We're making those trips each week with the help of our emergency management director, Don Guin, and myself, and some of our staff. We're making sure we get to these locations to get our PPE allotment, which consists of gloves and masks for EMS, as well as it's helping us protect our staff. So I'm very happy to be part of that and working with those organizations that I've been part of for quite a while. So that seems to work out. So we'll continue responding as needed and protect our members in the fire department at the best we can. Public Works, moving into the direction, trying to keep our plan in the field as close as we do scheduling has been a task, but supervisors are working together in all my divisions, from water and sewer to highway and grounds and buildings, and the buildings guys are doing sanitation above and beyond what they've ever done before and are doing a great job to help all our buildings stay on the plan to protect us as we're working and utilizing what we need to do here. So we'll continue. We will continue to be out there sweeping roads, doing tree work, drainage repairs. We have a lot of stuff coming up. We've talked about prepping for salt shed. Really important are salt shed improvements and some road work and things like that. So those things, as I've said for many weeks, will continue. We make changes each and every day based on our personnel, their availability, but we've been in great shape there, and knock on wood, we'll continue to do what we're doing, and hopefully that's helping. So we're in pretty good shape.
Great, Bob.
Yeah.
Now, if you just want to swing over to the bridge update, always everybody's interested in what's going on there.
Yeah, so I'm on that committee and was years ago, so they kind of pigged me for it, and it's working well. We met with the chamber, that's the safety committee, and we had a nice discussion on Monday, and we're moving along. Right now, things seem to be on schedule. Maybe a little bit of ahead of schedule. It's hard to say that. You get a day like rain and it throws off the contractors, but they are moving along. Things are going well. We are going to experience and let the public know that occasionally they have to go to an alternate lane of traffic, which I think happened yesterday and maybe one other time this week, which does cause a little bit of congestion on both sides of the bridge. But a lot of that has to do with some of the protective barriers that they're still installing under the bridge, and they have to get equipment up to do slinging and other miscellaneous work along the railing in the area of the pedestrian sidewalks as they're demolishing those. They're making saw cuts across that they have to certainly keep their construction personnel safe, so temporary lighting, things that are going to be put up and stay up, and that's going to help us as pedestrians driving over the bridge as well. So people are going to have to be patient as we move. When traffic, if we ever get back to normal, which I'm sure we will, traffic will start to build over the summer. That's my hope, to get back to the places that we love to be. And I'm sure as traffic increases, we're going to have to make some changes. They're fully aware of that. But right now, they're taking advantage of the lighter traffic and trying to do some of those jobs that maybe would impede traffic in the future. So Spring Street, if people have made it over the bridge in Middletown, that has moved along tremendously, I think. They said they've made good headway there, and they hope to get that intersection, the base of that intersection, really completed, which is going to have a whole new look how it intersects with that ramp coming off the bridge. It's supposed to be much safer in that area. And Middletown is working very closely with DOT as well as the contractor Mohawk on some design changes that they're looking for down in their downtown area, making some small changes maybe that weren't part of the plan, but that is in process as well. So all in all, the reports were good from DOT, from Mohawk, as well as the Chamber, and we continue to work on, our customers as well as they call Susan, they call myself, or over in Middletown to make sure that they're brought up to speed.
Great. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And again, I think overall, I think everything is working and coordinating very well with all of the departments as well as the government side and the educational side as far as that goes. So, and again, kudos to Susan and her whole administrative team. Great job, Susan. And
Thank you,
putting
Dave.
it all together. I know you spend many late nights in the office, and I think at the end of this, I think we're going to have the phone surgically removed from your ear, and I think Philip's in the same situation from his standpoint with the state board event and all of the calls that are going on.
But certainly our staff, and I can't say enough great things about our public works, public safety, our educators. I mean, everybody's doing a wonderful job, and I can't include everybody by name, but you know who you are, and I appreciate all that you're doing. And it's making Portland, as it always is, a pleasant place to live, and we look forward to a re-entry process that is just that. And I think in our future podcasts, we'll have more information on how we will re-enter and address some of those concerns in a positive way and make sure that we come through on the other side a better town and a better community.
Great, Susan. Thank you. Dr. O'Reilly, if you're still there, thank you so much for jumping in. And we're going to probably be calling you out of the bullpen a couple of more times before you leave. As far as
I'm happy to do this. That's great. I enjoy this.
No, that's great. And again, this is basically kind of bringing our episode 6 to a conclusion. And again, we're broadcasting live from our Town Tech Educational Partnership podcast studio live here at Portland High School. Again, we do the post-production. Kevin Armstrong, our engineer, is doing the post-production. We'll be getting this post-produced, and we also get it over to the Comcast station over on public access in Cromwell, and they have been airing this podcast on Tuesday mornings at 9 and again at 4 in the afternoon. And Tyler over there also puts it on. He was putting it on Thursday, but he changed up the schedule, so now we're going to be putting it on at Saturdays. So check the schedule, and you can, for those of you that don't have the internet, you can watch it on TV as far as that goes. So from all of us here at the podcast studio, thank you so much.
And thank you, Dave, and your technology team for doing this and for having the foresight to have this studio previous to the pandemic. It made our communication a lot better, and kudos to you as well. So thank you, Dave and team.
Well, I gotta thank Dr. O'Reilly for giving us this gorgeous suite up here that we're making great use of. So again, thank you to you, Dr. O'Reilly.
It's our pleasure, Dave, and a shout out back to you. Your help with our meetings your willingness to come in at night and film those and produce those for our community is so important. Thank you.
Well, again, it's...
And Kevin, holy cow.
Yes, Kevin's here. He's in the studio and so
great.
forth. And it's a team effort. It really is on everybody's part as far as that goes. So that wraps up episode 6. So until next time, stay home, stay safe, and wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Don't touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Social distance, avoid the crowds. Fight against the corona. Practice good hygiene and keep your personal space clean. Respect the social distancing. Fight against the corona. No matter Asian, black or white, the corona is colorblind. Together we can win the fight. Fight against the corona. Stay ready today, and tomorrow will be okay. Together we can win the fight. Fight against the corona.